Congressman Mike Gallagher represents Wisconsin on the Intel and Armed Services Committees. He's also a Marine veteran. Chairman, thank you for joining us. I think our viewers are wondering two things tonight. What does this ground offensive look like? What's it going to look like? And what dangers await the IDF in Gaza?
Well, there's no doubt it's going to be messy. One can't help but be reminded of some of the worst fighting in Iraq during our war there in places like Fallujah and Ramadi, house to house. You don't know what you're going to encounter when you kick down a door and go in. In addition to just the tactical threats on the ground, I think the broader threat Israel faces is what one could call lawfare, or this attempt by various international organizations and domestic organizations here in America, institutes of higher education, afraid of stupid student groups, to cast this as somehow Israel's fault, to blame Israel for this, and to apologize for the heinous actions of Hamas. All the more reason, as this ground offensive proceeds, we need to make sure that we stand with Israel. We push back on a lot of the stupidity, the anti-Semitic stupidity that we're seeing out there, and make sure that Israel isn't isolated in any international forum, and that we don't weaken in our effort to stand by Israel in this very difficult time. My own view, Trey, is that the most important thing we can do to have Israel's back is to change our Iran policy. Until we start to reimpose a policy of maximum pressure, almost nothing else in the region makes sense. And you reference the pinprick strikes that we took in Syria. What worries me is that Secretary Austin said that this is separate and distinct from the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, which suggests to me either they don't understand the basic alliance structure in the region, or they're willfully ignoring it in order to keep their Iran policy, their policy of appeasement, on life support, notwithstanding the chaos that it has wrought in the region.
Congressman, I was going to ask you that very point. It made no sense to me that somehow our, what they call self-defense, was unrelated. Let me ask you a question, not as a Republican congressman, but as a man who wore the uniform. Was the U.S. response to the provocations from Iran sufficient? Is it sufficient to deter Iran from attacking other U.S. assets?
It is not. We have not yet reestablished a credible military deterrent, in my opinion. I mean, just look at the facts of the ground. Iran killed 31 Americans on October 7th. Iran killed 31 Americans, and we have not held them accountable. Biden has done almost nothing. We need to reinstate maximum pressure and put all options back on the table, or frame it in terms of what the previous administration did. Trump killed Soleimani. We need to show Iran that if they hurt a single hair on an American, there will be consequences. There will be hell to pay. And that starts with ending the nuclear deal and increasing the economic pressure on Iran to cut off their ability to fund terrorism, including secondary sanctions on countries around the world profiting from this tragedy by buying cheap oil and gas. But no matter how many times the Biden administration gets mugged by geopolitical reality, they can't seem to change course. They've in fact been bragging about how effective their Middle East policy is. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan just published a foreign affairs article where they actually had to change the digital version from the print version, because the print version contained a variety of claims, such as the administration had de-escalated crises in Gaza and restored diplomacy, and then days later that was shown to be just incredibly hubristic. And so I just worry this administration is not willing to abandon the nuclear deal. And if you don't do that, you can't have a sensible Iran policy in the region.
Mike Gallagher, one of the brightest young Republican members of Congress. Thank you for joining us from the great state of Wisconsin.
Thank you, sir.